You tell yourself you want peace. You crave connection, the kind that feels safe, soft, and steady. The kind that doesn't make you question your worth with every silence. But when someone finally offers you that calm, something inside you trembles. The peace feels too quiet, the kindness too steady, the love too certain. So, without realizing it, you begin to pull away, not with grand gestures, but with small, invisible ones. This is where self-sabotage begins, not in rejection, but in protection. And yet, beneath every wall, every doubt, every distance you create, there's a story your nervous system remembers. One about safety, survival, and the fear of being seen too deeply. It often starts like this. Someone smiles at you with real warmth. They listen. They stay. You start to think maybe, just maybe, this is what healthy feels like. But then, your chest tightens. You feel the faint hum of unease, as if your body is saying, this is too much. That's the first sign. Not that something's wrong with them, but that something inside you doesn't yet believe safety can last. You've spent years learning how to protect yourself. The mind is brilliant at keeping score. It remembers who left, who lied, who withdrew. It catalogs the moments of pain and quietly shapes your expectations. That's why, even in moments of love, your body braces for loss. The brain, especially the amygdala, scans for threat faster than it registers joy. Love, to a hypervigilant mind, feels like walking barefoot through broken glass. You want to run toward it, but your past has taught you that every tender thing comes with splinters. And so, you start to self-sabotage. Not because you're broken, but because once upon a time, self-protection was the only way you knew how to love yourself. 1. You overthink kindness. They send a text that's short. They seem distracted. They don't reply for an hour. Your chest tightens, your thoughts flood with explanations. Did I say something wrong? Did their feelings change? Are they losing interest? You replay the last conversation, searching for clues. This is how anxiety disguises itself as logic. You think you're being rational, gathering data, connecting dots, but really, your nervous system is trying to predict pain before it arrives. It's emotional time travel. Your brain races ahead to shield you from rejection. The prefrontal cortex, the part that reasons, is hijacked by the amygdala's alarm. You don't just imagine worst-case scenarios. You feel them as if they're already true. You tell yourself you're just being cautious. But in truth, you're rehearsing heartbreak. And each time you do, you train your mind to associate safety with vigilance rather than rest. If you were to step back, take one slow breath, one full exhale, you'd see something else. Their short reply doesn't mean disinterest. Their pause doesn't mean distance. Sometimes people are just living their day. But to the part of you that equates silence with abandonment, every pause feels like the beginning of an ending. And that's okay to notice. Because healing begins not with correction, but with compassion. You learn to overthink to stay safe. That was never foolish. It was survival. But now, you're allowed to replace control with curiosity. To ask, what if I'm safe even when I don't know? 2. You mistrust peace. They treat you gently. They speak calmly. They don't raise their voice or play games. They communicate. They mean what they say. And it unnerves you. Your body, so used to chaos, doesn't know what to do with stability. You start scanning for flaws. You question motives. You find yourself picking at small imperfections, not because you want to, but because your nervous system equates calm with danger. You grew up learning that love often came with tension. That attention meant volatility, that affection was earned by appeasing moods. So when peace arrives, it feels foreign, even threatening. The sympathetic nervous system, tuned to constant alert, misreads stillness as the prelude to a storm. This is how trauma lingers, not always in memory, but in pattern. And so, you might provoke a fight without meaning to. You test them, subtly. A delayed response here, a cold withdrawal there. You want to see if they'll chase, if they'll prove they care. What you're really asking is, can you hold me when I get scared? Can your steadiness survive my doubt? Sometimes they can. Sometimes they can't. But the question isn't whether they pass your test, it's whether you can trust peace long enough to believe it doesn't hide pain. Healing here means learning that calm doesn't mean emptiness. Stability isn't boredom. Sometimes peace just feels unfamiliar because it's what you deserved all along but rarely received. 3. You confuse independence with isolation. You've built yourself around self-reliance. You say, "I don't need anyone." You take pride in it, the quiet strength, the ability to handle your storms alone. But deep down, that independence sometimes feels like exile. When love enters, you hesitate to lean in. You fear dependence will make you weak, that closeness will dissolve your identity. So, you keep a subtle distance, just enough to breathe, just enough to control the narrative. You share pieces of yourself, but never the whole. You call it boundaries, but sometimes it's a barrier built from old grief. The psychology behind it is tender. The attachment system, once wounded, becomes cautious. The avoidant type learns that intimacy equals loss of freedom, while the anxious type fears loss of love. Both carry the same wound, unmet safety. Your need for space isn't wrong. It's sacred. But when you withdraw not from need, but from fear, you rob yourself of the very nourishment you crave. The truth is that healthy love doesn't ask you to surrender your independence. It expands it. Connection isn't a cage, it's a bridge between two whole worlds. And the bravest thing you can do sometimes isn't to stand alone, but to let someone walk beside you without fear that you'll disappear. 4. You set unrealistic standards as protection. You say you're waiting for the right one. Someone emotionally intelligent, grounded, funny, self-aware, driven, but not too driven. You scroll, swipe, measure, assess. You tell yourself you're just discerning. But if you look closer, those standards sometimes morph into armor. The more impossible they become, the safer you feel, because no one can truly meet them, which means no one can truly hurt you. Perfectionism is often the child of fear. It masks vulnerability with ideals. Your subconscious thinks, if I only choose perfectly, I'll never feel pain again. But connection isn't about perfection, it's about presence. Neuroscience tells us that belonging triggers the release of oxytocin, a neurochemical of trust and bonding. Yet the same brain regions that light up during emotional pain overlap with those of physical pain. So we build psychological walls to spare our hearts from that ache. But in doing so, we also block the very warmth that heals us. Healthy love is imperfect, gloriously, messily, humanly so. It's two nervous systems learning to co-regulate, two histories learning to make peace. Sometimes it's awkward. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's breathtakingly simple. And that's where the beauty lives. Not in the perfection of the person, but in the honesty of the connection. 5. You seek familiar pain. You meet someone gentle, and your chest tightens with unease. You meet someone unpredictable, and something inside you sparks. You tell yourself it's chemistry, that they excite you. But sometimes, what feels like chemistry is simply familiarity. The brain craves what it knows, even if what it knows is pain. It's called repetition compulsion, a psychological pattern where we unconsciously recreate old wounds in hopes of rewriting them. You're not crazy for being drawn to those who mirror your past hurts. You're trying to resolve unfinished business. The child in you still hopes that this time, love will stay. This time, the ending will be different. But healing doesn't come from reenacting the pain, it comes from recognizing it. So, when you feel that magnetic pull towards someone emotionally unavailable, pause. Ask yourself, do I feel seen or do I feel triggered? The difference is quiet but profound. Sometimes, the calm one will bore you because your body doesn't yet equate calm with love. But stay long enough, and something begins to shift. Your nervous system learns that safety can coexist with excitement, that passion doesn't require panic. Slowly, the familiar chaos loses its grip. That's the moment healing becomes real, when your attraction starts to align with your peace rather than your pain. 6. You shrink your needs to keep the peace. You tell yourself you're easygoing, low maintenance, chill. You say yes when you mean maybe. You say it's fine when it's not. You convince yourself that avoiding conflict is the same as keeping harmony. But unspoken resentment is a quiet poison. Each time you swallow your truth, you teach your nervous system that authenticity isn't safe. Over time, this leads to emotional disconnection, from your partner and from yourself. Psychologically, this stems from fawning, a trauma response where we prioritize others' comfort over our own safety. The parasympathetic system, trying to keep peace, numbs our emotional signals. We smile to survive. But you can't heal in the same silence that hurt you. Healthy relationships thrive on honesty, gentle, attuned, respectful honesty. Expressing your needs isn't confrontation, it's communication. It's telling the other person, here's how to love me well. And yes, it's terrifying. Especially if your past taught you that love disappears when you speak up. But those who are meant for you won't run from your truth. They'll lean in. They'll meet you there. Healing here looks like small acts of bravery. Saying no without guilt, asking for reassurance without shame, letting someone see your tenderness without apology. That's how intimacy deepens, not by pleasing, but by revealing. 7. You fear the stillness after connection. They hold you close. They say they love you. The night is quiet. For a moment, you feel safe. Completely, profoundly safe. But then the stillness settles, and your mind begins to spin. What if they stop feeling this way? What if something goes wrong? The high of connection fades into the low of withdrawal. Your dopamine drops. Your brain craves the next surge of certainty. You mistake that biochemical shift for emotional truth. You think love is fading when really, your nervous system is simply readjusting to calm. In the early stages of bonding, the limbic system floods with oxytocin and dopamine, a rush that feels like euphoria. But as attachment stabilizes, the chemistry softens. That's not loss, it's equilibrium. Yet if you've associated calm with abandonment, that equilibrium feels like emptiness. So, you chase intensity again. Conflict, overthinking, drama, anything that feels alive. But love isn't meant to be a roller coaster. It's meant to be a rhythm. True connection deepens not through constant highs, but through quiet presence. Through mornings where nothing spectacular happens, yet you still feel safe beside them. Through disagreements that end not in distance but in understanding. Through the slow, steady growth of two people choosing each other, even when it's ordinary. When you learn to stay through the stillness, your heart discovers a new kind of aliveness, one that doesn't depend on adrenaline, but on peace. You see, self-sabotage isn't about malice or dysfunction. It's about memory. The brain remembers what once kept you safe and repeats it until you consciously choose differently. And choosing differently doesn't mean erasing your defenses. It means honoring them, then gently rewriting the story they tell. You begin to notice the patterns, how you pull away when you want closeness, how you test love when you fear losing it, how you interpret peace as distance. You start to catch yourself mid-reaction and whisper, I'm safe now. That's how new neural pathways form, through mindful interruption, through awareness paired with compassion. Over time, you learn that love isn't a test to pass or a threat to survive. It's a shared space of nervous systems learning to feel safe together. And maybe, on some quiet afternoon, you'll find yourself sitting beside someone, no performance, no pretense. The air feels light. The silence feels soft. You don't need to prove or perfect anything. You just breathe. That's what healing feels like, not dramatic, but steady. Not fireworks, but warmth. You realize you're not sabotaging anymore. You're participating. You're choosing. You're allowing yourself to be loved without rehearsing disaster. You don't overthink the message. You don't flinch at all. You don't shrink your needs. You don't chase the familiar pain. You don't confuse peace for danger. You don't flee the stillness. You stay. And in staying, you discover something breathtakingly simple. You were never unlovable. You were just afraid. You were never too much. You were just conditioned to hold less. You were never broken. You were protecting your softness the only way you knew how. Now you know a gentler way. To receive love without flinching. To offer love without fear. To build safety, not sabotage it. To rest in the arms of peace and call it home. And when you do, when you finally stop running from what was always meant for you, you'll see that love was never something you had to chase or control. It was something you were always worthy of, simply because you exist.